Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Retiring for the End of 2025. Here's what you need to know/do. We're so glad you could join us. My name is Anastasia, and I'm your marketing specialist here at Malecki Financial Group, and I'll be guiding the conversation today with our two lovely presenters.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stan Malecki. I specialize in exit planning and retirement income strategies for our clients.
Hi everyone, my name is Eric Stiles. I'm a certified financial planner. I specialize in retirement income solutions.
Awesome. So today we're going over 5 main areas when you're prepping for retirement. So clarifying your timeline and your specific lifetime goals or lifestyle goals, locking in your income plan, tax planning before 2026 because there are some upcoming changes, healthcare and insurance coverage, as well as estate and legacy readiness.
So, when starting out to build a retirement plan, it's hard to build anything if you don't know where you're going or what you're trying to achieve. So, first and foremost, you have to think about how do you envision your retirement? Is it simply the same lifestyle you have now and same hobbies, same things you're doing, but just not working? Is it moving somewhere new? Is it starting a new hobby that requires a monthly expense? Is it buying a vacation home? Is it, traveling a lot more to visit family if they don't live local, or just traveling in general? So, this is the fun part, and it's kind of weird that a lot of people don't really think about this. They just know like, hey, I want to retire at some point, but they never really had that deep internal like conversation with themselves about how exactly did they kind of envision their retirement. So this is like the first thing we need before, really building a plan is knowing where are we going? What are we trying to pursue? And what are we trying to achieve? Another thing that kind of comes to it and something to think about as well is will you be bored in retirement if you're not working anymore? We've talked to a number of clients that have retired. We talked to them 6 months later, 9 months later, and we're like, "Hey, how's retirement?" And they're like, "I did everything that was on my list, and I'm bored now." So, for a lot of people, what we find that they do is maybe they retire from their job they're doing and they go to try to do something more fulfilling and more enjoyable, even though like, yeah, you'll get paid, but it's not anything like your main career. You're just doing it because you like to do it. Or, there's a lot of people that pick up a part-time job just to simply stay busy, go be a beach badge checker or something like that if you like the beach. So there's a lot of things to think about, but really, we have to know what your goals are before we can start building that plan and move on to the next step.
Definitely. So once you know that you do want to retire, you know when you want to retire, assuming it's at the end of this year, what comes next? Locking in your income plan. Stan, you're going to talk to us about this one, right?
I am. That's it. That's right. So one of the strategies that we do use here at our firm, it's exclusive to us here at Cetera, is it's called Advanced Time Segmentation. Let's talk about that a little bit. There's a lot of moving parts to this, but I'm gonna make it simple, as simple as I can for our purposes today here. So instead of treating your entire nest egg of savings for retirement as kind of just one big pot, we like to kind of divide it up into different buckets, and we use software to actually do this, but kind of we'll break it down for you. So bucket one would be maybe a short-term need for income. We want to set up income now in retirement. How do we take distributions, right? So instead of looking at one big pot, we use bucket one, we're going to call it for today's purposes. And we're going to that's the short-term needs. Let's say that's, years 1 through 5 of income. Then we're going to also approach this and we're going to have more of an intermediate kind of, medium size or set bucket, I should say, for medium term needs that are maybe 5 to 10 years out. Okay. And we're going to have each one of these buckets, by the way, has a time and a purpose allotted to it. Very intent in what we're doing and intentional. Bucket three is really focused on long term growth. That's a 15-year hold. The monies are liquid. We could access it if needed, but it's purposely for the strategy set up for long term. It's used to mitigate risk in the market, and it's also used to beat inflation and have assets grow for you for future income or even passing on for your heirs and things of that nature. So it helps smooth the ups and downs in the road of the market. and bucketizing, if you will, these strategies. We kind of break them out for you, and it's a proven method. This way we have, dependable income in retirement, and we look at it with these different buckets. It's very strategic and it's not haphazard at all. It works, and it's a strategy that we really recommend quite a bit for clients.
Awesome. Now, ATS is exclusive to Cetera, so if that's something that you might be interested in or have questions about, make an appointment with your advisor to ask more questions. But moving past income needs, tax planning is something you should think about every year, but specifically for 2026, there's some things we need to talk about.
Exactly. So really between now and the year end before 2026, couple things to consider here, and we put it down on the slide is, we would consider Roth conversions now when your income might be in a low period before even taking, let's say, required minimum distributions. So that's something we may want to focus on. We also may want to plan for managing capital gains for taxable investments before maybe your income changes. So that's another planning thing that we'll always do and work with our clients. Also, too, gifting and charitable giving is also a big thing that clients may do. If you're feeling philanthropic and things of that nature, that might be something that's important to people. So, things to consider. Now, 2026, we have some tax law changes coming that Eric's going to actually talk about next.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of things that are changing, but the main one, as far as for our clients and our purposes, we're going to focus in on today is the additional tax deduction that you can now receive if you're going to be 65 or older, and this is effective through 2025 and through 2028. Yes, there are some stipulations that potentially, if your income is too high, whether you're filing a single or filing jointly, you could be excluded from these extra deductions, but it's a $6,000 per eligible individual. So if you're married and you're both over 65, that's 12,000 total extra deduction on top of your standard deduction that you can claim when you file your taxes. So it's set up to give those that are essentially, ideally in retirement, a little bit more of a tax break to be able to claim a higher deduction. So, something to think about when you're filing your taxes early next year, whether you file tax yourself or you work with a CPA. Make sure you have that set up if you're one of those lucky people that can get that extra deduction.
Awesome. And when in doubt, always talk to your tax preparer before anything else happens.
Of course.
So
Absolutely.
another step that you have to go over is healthcare and insurance coverage because that's going to change a lot when you stop working.
Yes.
Exactly. So let's talk. Oh, did you want to say something, Eric?
Yeah, I got the slide, Sam. So this slide is, we're going to kind of focus in on long-term care and life insurance on this. I'll touch on long-term care first. So I'll kind of segment group of people in three people. You got high net worth, your middle class, and your low net worth. Generally, if you're low net worth, there's not many assets to spend down, and so you're probably just going to qualify for Medicaid if there's a health concern that gives you the need for long-term care. Those that are high net worth generally can just fund for it, out of pocket. They, self-insure it. But it's that middle class that the majority of people are in that are in a tricky situation. Whereas in order to qualify for Medicaid, they'd have to spend down their assets. But also maybe they don't have enough assets, depending on how long your time in the facility would be, to spend all of it, but still have enough left to kind of pass along to your kids or pass along to your heirs, which is very important to a lot of people. So that's where sometimes, looking into long-term care insurance could help give you that coverage and that cushion, knowing that, hey, I worked very hard for these savings, I worked very hard for this money. I want to make sure if I'm not spending it like on, fun things in retirement, it's going to be passed along to my kids so they can have a easier life. So looking to that, with your advisor could be, something to consider. And then you have life insurance. A lot of people have life insurance. The biggest need for life insurance is when you're just starting off a young family and have your first house and all that. But there's a question. Okay, I'm retired now. Do I still need this life insurance policy? Generally for a lot of people, it might not be necessary anymore because the main reason why people get life insurance is for replacement of income loss for your loved ones. So, if you're if you're married with kids and you pass away, you want to make sure that your loved ones and your kids are still financially going to be okay now that they don't have your income anymore. But now that you're retired, you're saying, "Oh, I don't need an income anymore. I don't need a paycheck anymore. I have enough assets that I'm self-insured to cover my living expenses moving forward." But for some people, whether it be business owners as a part of a business agreement, or whether it be someone just really wants to maximize leaving a legacy to their kids and maximize the amount that could be left in an insurance policy, that could be a few reasons why you would hold on to it, even though you're retired. So, of course, with all these, it's all unique to your specific situation. So it depends on, exactly what you're looking for and how your financial profile is set up.
Exactly. All right, let's take a look a little bit more in kind of bridging the gap in coverage for Medicare and things of that nature. So let's talk about first, let's say you're retiring and your spouse decides to continue to work. So you may want to consider planning on joining potentially their plan. Now remember though too, there's enrollment periods for these plans, so you might have to wait until the enrollment period is, but that's something to definitely consider and be on your spouse's plan. Other options that we look at here are, of course, private insurance. There's state programs that are available, of course, for states that have their own state plans. And healthcare.gov is a federal website where you can go where let's say there is those states that are not part of that, you can look to see what type of healthcare coverage there is. So let's talk about now also too you can also qualify for Medicare early if you're on Social Security disability. So I just wanted to point that out on that previous slide. Medicare. So the golden age, most of us probably know this, is age 65. Individuals can qualify for Medicare. Social Security, this second bullet point is extremely critical. Social Security Administration recommends that applying 3 months before you reach age 65. That's critical. If you don't do that, there could be penalties that you would be applied to your premiums on an ongoing forward basis. You want to avoid that mess. So make sure you apply at least 3 months before. Um, and if you're already receiving Social Security benefits, just keep in mind you will automatically be enrolled for Medicare Part A and Part B, which are hospitalization and also medical insurance without any additional application. So that's crucial also. And then Medicare prescription drug benefits, which we might know it as Part D, maybe more commonly known as, provides outgoing drug coverage, and it's only covered through private insurance companies, just to keep that in mind.
One thing I just want to add in
Sure.
here is everyone should also consider adding in a Medigap or a Medicare Advantage plan as well. Having Part A, B, and D is all great, but there's potential that you could have a very expensive bills if unfortunately you go through a rough health time in your life, whether it be unfortunately, a lot of people deal with cancer and this and that and other expenses. So essentially, what a Medigap or Medicare Advantage plan can do, it adds a limit to the out-of-pocket expenses that you can pay. So it's a combination of the copay, the co-insurance, but there is a limit. So I do highly recommend everyone looks into that. Unfortunately, there's tons of different Medigap plans out there. They are standardized, across different private insurers, but it is something you should work hand in hand and make sure it's the right setup for you.
Now, I know we mentioned something earlier about preserving that legacy. How can you go about that? And what are the steps for that part, even?
Sure. So I can touch on that. I think anyone, no matter how old you are, what stage of your career you are, beginning, middle, and retired, everyone should have a will, power of attorney, and have your beneficiaries set up matching, those rules. So I want to talk about the relationship between a will and beneficiaries real quick. So everyone thinks it's easy to think that like, okay, well, if I have it set in my will that I want my money to go to person A, but then your 401k at work or your investment accounts have it set that as the beneficiaries are marked as person B, just know that beneficiary designations supersede anything that's in a will, and it passes by contract first. So that's where you want to make sure when you have your will set up, you want to make sure your beneficiary designations across all of your investment accounts, whether they're multiple different places, match that in the will. Um, so wills and also power attorneys are very important as well. Um, no one knows exactly when a health event's going to happen for them, but generally, especially as you get older and older, health events generally will happen. Or if there's accidents and you become incapacitated, or in some way, you want to make sure that your loved one is ready and able immediately to act on your behalf and take care of you, whether it be for financial or medical reasons. So that's where we don't do these just we set beneficial designations here, but we don't do wills, we don't do power of attorneys, we don't do trusts. That's where you got to work hand in hand with attorneys that specialize in estate planning, because even if you think you have a unique situation, they've probably seen it multiple times, that they can give you some recommendations on how to set up your will, how to set up your power of attorney, and potentially if you have a very unique situation that warrants a trust, you can always look into putting that together as well. But it's very important to get that set up so that when your time is done, your loved ones that are left are set up in a smooth, efficient way to process, the death claim procedure.
And if you don't
Yeah.
currently have an estate attorney, we do have a couple in our network that we can give you the contact information for, but do your own research always. So we covered a lot today, and a lot of these steps have sub-steps that can be really overwhelming. So let's have a planning session to get your 2025 retirement on track. If you are concerned about any of these steps, please reach out to the office and schedule your next financial strategy review as soon as possible so that we can get you prepared for what steps happen next.
Yep. Thank you everyone for listening in. And like Anastasia said, if you want to get specific advice on your unique situation, just give us a call and set up a time.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. We do appreciate you joining. And just remember, be intentional with your planning. And we're here from countdown to confidence. We want to make sure our clients are confident with their retirement plan, and that's what we're here for, to do, to make sure we see that happen through in helping our clients.
Of course. Now, I will leave it for a minute. As you can see, if you have any questions that we can answer kind of generally now, there should be a Q&A box down below. If it isn't there, I'm so sorry, but you can always reach out to us via email as well. I will let that sit for a minute, but just wanted to make sure that you guys understand we are here for you for any of the concerns you might have. There's a lot that goes into actually retiring. That next step can be a big deal.
As we're waiting real quick, I will add something that Eric already touched base on earlier, if that's okay. Something Eric talked about, I would be definitely considering, this is more mentally, emotionally, not financially. Eric talked about it. When you retire, you really, outside of now, you're leaving work. You had a purpose. The last 30, 40 years, you were working at your job, running a business, whatever that might look like. And all of a sudden, that's gone when you retire. And we're seeing a lot of people struggling with that, like Eric indicated earlier. So just really be intentional in your planning for the next part of your life, that kind of that next chapter. And whatever that might be, don't just say, "Oh, I'm going to do some more golf or this and that." Like literally have a plan of what you're going to do, whether it's traveling or run another business, or it could be even things like, "I want to volunteer now and give it back to the community." Things of that nature. Really, we've seen many people become bored, like Eric mentioned earlier. And in fact, being a CEPA, certified exit planning advisor, working with businesses, helping those business owners exit. There's a study, it shows that over 70% of business owners, when they sell off their business because they didn't have that next stage plan of what they're going to do in life, they're miserable. 70% of them are regret a year later that they've actually sold their business. So that doesn't have to be a business owner only, by the way. That's all of us. We've had something we've done for our entire careers, and that disappears. So just be intentional and plan for that. Really helps be more of a healthy, happy, emotional type onset and mindset for retirement.
So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, and I do see some of our attendees are hopping off. So just
Okay.
thank you again, and please reach out to the office with any questions.